Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Jim Porter. This is Steve Ogden. We're going to be presenting Integrated Pest Management to y'all today. Our background is, well, we were in the same Master Gardener's class a couple years ago, and then we decided to go a little bit further, and we did some advanced training in entomology. So this is part of our getting our certification is part of our teaching. We need to teach about 20 hours, and this is, y'all have graciously allowed us to do that. So at that, Steve's going to get started, then I'll get in the middle, and as long as we're both still alive. Hope you enjoy it.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming out in the rain and the livestock show. We appreciate everybody coming out. So we'll get started. We're going to talk about safely controlling insects in the garden, utilizing integrated pest management. I'm walking too far, right?
Yep.
Okay. As the National Pesticide Institute has said, one out of nearly a million known insect species, only about 1 to 3% are even considered pests. That doesn't include all the pests that are in your garden right now. So what is integrated pest management? Well, integrated pest management is a combination of methods used to effectively control pest species while minimizing the destruction or the disruption of the environment. These methods include biological, physical, limited chemical, intercropping, crop rotation, and predators of the pests. So you can go to your local big ticket store and go in and ask for an assassin beetle, see what they tell you. Probably have the FBI coming at you the next day. So why choose integrated pest management? Well, there's a lot of good reason. Any organism that adversely affects us, crops or livestock, or anything that we consider of value, we want to control. So the goals and objectives of integrated pest management. I like my little bugs. So the objectives of IPM, integrated pest management, I'll call IPM from now on. It's reduce reliance on chemicals. We want to try to get away and use as much biological as possible. Want to minimize the environmental impact, preserve beneficial insects, and maintain economic viability for farmers. So, what do we need to start an IPM? Well, we need a plan. So we need to design an IPM plan, setting objectives and strategies for what we have. Even if you have just a little tomato plant, you can practice IPM. Is it on your patio or on your balcony in your apartment? You can practice IPM because you got to know you've got a tomato plant or whatever vegetable. You got to know what bugs like that vegetable, what they like to eat, so you need to be prepared for them. And when you do see them, you need to know how to react and how to take care of that pest so that you have big, luscious, red tomatoes that you can present at our Master Gardener meeting in June. You're going to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of your IPM program. You're going to plot it out. Is it working? That's what you're going to find out. If it's not working, what do I need to do? And if it's not working, you need to look at the economical value of what you're putting into trying to restore that plant or that crop. Is it worth it? Then you've got a lot of advocacy and outreach programs that you can capture to help you kind of figure out your plan. So The key points of IPM, you didn't know this, but you're a bunch of different things when you are different people when you practice IPM. Like agronomy, you're dealing with the crops in the soil. Do you have good soil? Is it the soil that's wrong and not the pest? So you just kind of look at everything. Entomology, is it the bug? Plant pathology, is it a disease? Coming from the soil, coming from a virus, whatever. Then if you're into, of course, economics and agricultural engineering, a lot of you won't do that in your own home garden except by manual labor. And then climatology, can't control the weather. So you kind of got to know when you have your last freeze or last frost, or when you have your first frost. So you got to take all this into consideration when you're putting together a garden or a crop, or anything that you're going to grow that you want a good success. Now, a little bit of history. I didn't read this article, but back in somewhere around 2500 BC, the element of sulfur was used to control mite and insect populations. And today we still use sulfur. Around 1500 AD, we're getting up there pretty quick. Some plants were found to generate insecticidal and more recently herbicidal compounds like pyrethrum, the neem tree, and bottlebrush, which is a herbicide, Callisto. Late 1800s, inorganic compounds used for insect and fungal control included Paris green. I don't know if anybody's ever heard these or used these. The Bordeaux mix, which is copper sulfate and hydrated lime. Lead arsenate, that sounds wonderful. Creosote, take it off the telephone poles and put it on your plants. And then sodium hypochlorite, or basically bleach. And in 1939 was what they call the dawn of the insecticide era. DDT was the big deal. Can you imagine? A lot of the soldiers back in World War I think, were dusted with DDT because of fleas and things in the battlefield. So late 1940s, more chemicals, including 2,4-D, which we still, oh, I'm sorry. Which I can't read it now. So 2,4-D came into effect in the 1940s. In 1948, warfarin was used as a rodenticide. Later, now we put it in our bodies. Can you imagine that? We're killing rodents, and you just wonder. So, come 1962, a marine biologist had seen a lot. She'd seen enough. She'd been writing about the ocean. She loved the ocean, but she'd seen what is going on in the world and the way pesticides were developing and how there was no control. So in 1962, Rachel Carlson wrote a book called Silent Spring. Matter of fact, I happen to have that book right here. In this book, she talks about what pesticides are doing to people. She knew that pesticides, the body could only handle absorption of so many chemicals. She was worried about cancer. She's seeing more cancer because of all the chemicals coming out. The chemical companies are saying, hey, these people have pests. We're gonna come up with a chemical to kill them. Well, it's gonna kill us too. So she was on a crusade. So in 1962, they came out with a saying for her, saying it wasn't a silent spring, it was going to be a noisy summer, because everybody took to the book. Our United States Congress took up the book. And at that time, they decided to act on it, and we got the EPA, the wonderful EPA, our big brother. So in 1967, after her book, the first term IPM came into being, Integrated Pest Management. 1970, the Environmental Protection Agency was founded. I think it was Richard Nixon that established that. They oversaw the registration of pesticide formulations and had an enforcement arm on fungicides, insecticides, and rodenticides, and other protectants involving environmental contamination. 1996, Roundup comes in. I know everybody's heard Roundup. Been a lot of controversy about Roundup, but Roundup soybeans were introduced in 1996, 98. You had the corn, Roundup Ready corn, and then in the 2000s, they estimate over 1.2 billion pounds of pesticides are used annually. Today, with increasing knowledge of pest crops and improving technologies, field-specific management is now available or possible through IPM. So the history can be traced back to the 1800s when ecology was finally identified as a foundation of scientific plant protection. IPM, this is from the Annual Review of Entomology, Volume 3, 1998. I do read this stuff. So IPM is recognized as one of the most robust constructs to arise in the agricultural sciences during the second half of the 20th century. So this is extremely important. People practice IPM. So, So what is a pest? I looked up pest so many different times. There are so many different definitions for pest. Jim could be a pest. I could be a pest. We both may be a pest to y'all today. But this one I thought was kind of humorous. It's from Wikipedia. Yeah. Yep. A pest is an organism harmful to humans or human concerns. The term is particularly used in creatures, organisms that damage crops, livestock, forestry, or cause a nuisance to people, especially in their homes. This is what I thought of humorous with, of course, with Wikipedia and their, I can't say woke, right? Humans have modified the environment for their own purposes and are intolerant of other creatures occupying the same space when their activities impact adversely on human objectives. That was actually in there, along with this next one. Thus, an elephant is unobjectionable in its natural habitat, but a pest when it tramples crops. So this is kind of my theory. I'm sitting out on a 5-gallon bucket in my garden. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, well, what's going wrong with my garden? It's not looking too good. I look at it and I go, wow, what am I going to do? So I look at symptoms and I try to figure out if the symptoms are virus, are from soil-borne, or from pests. And then I try to identify it. And then I try to treat it. Well, I call this my sit system because I'm sitting on the bucket, I'm looking at the plants, and I'm trying to figure it out. And it seems to work pretty good. And besides, you get to talk to your plants a little bit more. But in the treatment levels, there are two different types of thresholds. Action threshold is when you first do something about it. Economic threshold is when you kind of try to figure out if it's even worth messing with. Buying the chemicals, buying the biologicals, even buying, if anybody's priced predatory bugs, they're not cheap, especially in the small gardens. Larger gardens, maybe so, but you can't guarantee that they're going to stay in your garden. They may go to your neighbor's garden. So that does it for the first 2 hours.
Oh, let me get organized here. Okay, he's hard to follow. I can tell that already. Some of this will be a little bit redundant, but important just the same. And again, integrated pest management is a science-based approach to pests.
In my hand.
It uses knowledge about the pest to design the effective management strategy. The tactics may include changing the environment to make it less hospitable to pests or using their aspects of their behavior to kill or divert them. IPM not only solves some of the problems that pesticide overuse causes, but it also more effective and economic than relying solely on routine chemical applications. And IPM is the preferred pest control strategy that the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service follows and encourages. So a lot of my presentation comes out of our book. If you haven't read your book, you know, other than to get the answers to the test questions, I encourage you to look at the book because there's a whole section on IPM strategies right here in this book. Some of my presentation was from our course that we took, and I got permission from Wizzy Brown to present some of her slides. There may be a slide in there from Noveline. I'm not sure. I got her permission too. But anyways, it's a combination of things. Now, steps in IPM. Identify and monitor. Like Steve was saying, you need to know what you're looking at. Do you have a problem? One worm doesn't cause a problem. One caterpillar is not a problem. What's the cause of the problem? Is the problem serious enough to treat? In other words, are you going to do more damage to your garden treating it than just letting it go? And what do you do? What do you use? This is something new to me, so I'm kind of this little clicker's going to get me. Methods of control are cultural control, mechanical and physical control, biological control, and pesticides. Cultural controls. Cultural controls are preparing the soil, improving your drainage, choosing plants for our area that are resistant to pests. And, you know, a lot of people on the tilling and luting, I tell you folks, I till. A lot of people don't. I till. So, but that's killing overwintering pests. Crop rotation. If you're planting in if you've got a big enough garden and you can move it around, that helps with pests. And you need to keep your weeds to a minimum. Now, I already talked about the plant selection. Make sure you try and get plants that are adapted to our area. That can reduce pests. And it also determines your planting time. What zone are you in? You know, I think we're in 7B. Is that correct? 8B. Yeah. I was off by 1 point.
You're North Carolina.
Sanitation. When your garden's done, make sure you get all those old plants out of there. Get your weeds out of there. You know, you don't want, try and get rid of plants that overwintering pests are. Overwintering, you may not realize it. I didn't realize it, that insects can overwinter in your soil. And when they do that, if you've planted the same plant in the soil, the same pest is going to come up and he's going to eat what you got. And you need to reduce the weeds. Mechanical and physical control. This is the fun part. high pressure water sprays. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to go out there with my pressure washer and spray my plants, but just a bottle sprayer, which you can knock off some of the insects. By the time they get back up off the ground onto the plant, the plant's strong enough and you've already produced your fruit. Works best on small, soft-bodied insects. It damages their exoskeleton, knocks them off the host plant, but it doesn't work very well with flying insects. Vacuuming. I didn't even know there was such a thing as vacuuming plants. But you can actually go on Amazon, type that into a search, and they'll come up with a list of vacuums you can use to vacuum your plants. So you can vacuum it off. None of these there's no pesticides involved. So these are things you can do that you're not putting any chemical back in your ground. Hand picking. Now, I can tell you right now, Rhonda's not going to go out there and pick a bug off a plant. But I will.
Oh, you will not.
And then she'll squash it. She's a squasher. I see Noveline over there you can hear him pop. Make sure you wear gloves. This says put your wingless pests into a bird feeder. You know, I'm not sure I'm going to do that either, but winged insects, if you're picking them off or you're getting them off there, you can put them in a baggie with some mild soapy water and that'll kill them. You need a dedicated vacuum if you're going to vacuum your plants. Don't take your house vacuum out there and vacuum up your plants. That could be a problem. And they have handheld, backpacks, and cordless vacuum cleaners. The ones that I saw were cordless, actually. Plant collars. If you put plant collars down, which you can see that, they used actually toilet paper rolls, you know, the cardboard thing, put them down in there where the plant's still small and those insects that are going to climb up can't get to them. You can use tinfoil and put it around there and they can't get to it. Any way you can block those insects that are going to come up through the soil and onto your plant. Works well with cutworms. I don't have a problem with cutworms yet. Use mulch. Prevent water loss. We probably don't have that problem right now, but last year we had a lot of problems with it. Reduces the growth of weeds, and it does. I'm sure most of y'all probably use mulch already. Maintains the soil temperature. Prevents soil splashing diseases. You know, the rain we've got now, if you've got some kind of disease in your soil, it's going to splash right up onto your plant. It improves the soil structure. And I don't know about y'all, but when we bought our place, it's mostly clay with some sand. And we started putting that mushroom mulch in there, and that soil is rich now. It's just, I was amazed, and I've only done it a couple of years. And it improves the movement of water in the soil. Biological control. Using other organisms to control a pest. And this is where, if you're just a poison sprayer, which I used to be, you're killing everything. You're killing all the beneficial insects that you have in your garden. You're killing anything that's going to help your garden grow. So you need to be conservative. You need to augment it, and it's you use microorganisms, beneficial nematodes, other insects to control pests. Most of these are already present in your soil, so you just need to nurture that along. Predators. Ladybugs eat. What do they eat, Noveline? Yep, aphids. So if you've got a bunch of ladybugs, there's also the It's a little bitty wasp, the parasitic wasp. And like Steve said, you can buy those things. I actually looked online. They're best in greenhouses because out in the open, they're just going to go anywhere. But they're like $100 for just a little box of those things. You know, they're expensive. And this is that little wasp, that parasitic wasp, and that's a caterpillar right here. And what it does, it secretes some kind of chemical that tells the caterpillar that he's full. And so he quits eating until he just dies. Chemical control, pesticides. Using pesticides, natural or synthetic, to control pest populations, naturally derived products used to manage pest populations often have no residual effect, therefore may need several applications. That's the neem oils and the insecticidal soap. Synthetic, man-made products used to manage pest populations typically are a more stable molecule and therefore last longer in the environment. Now that's kind of how to read a pesticides.
I changed it this morning.
And this comes out of our book, but all pesticides have a label on them. And the label is a legal document. Louder, can anybody hear me? Okay.
Sorry, what?
It's the law. So the pesticides have a trade name, an active ingredient list, a formulation, a signal word, directions for use, allowed sites, and targeted pests or target pests. The pesticide trade name is a proprietary name of the product. Different trade names may use the same active ingredient. You know, you got your different labels, manufacturers. The active ingredient list includes common name and sometimes chemical names. Common name is the generally agreed upon designation for an active ingredient. It is not proprietary and can be sold by multiple manufacturers. Example, pyrethrum, you know, the one that's been around for 2,000 years. Chemical names are technical name that describes the molecular identity of the pesticide. And the formulation is how the active ingredient is prepared for use, whether it's aerosols, baits, dust, granules, liquid concentrates, and ready-to-use products. It affects the product's cost, safety, stability, and ease or type of application. Signal words. There's either going to be a label on there that says caution, which is low risk, warning, which is more risk, and then danger, which you're probably going to have a license to even buy those. While all pesticides can be used safely, if you follow the label directions, take extra care with those higher risk problems. So, you know, when we're looking for something to use in our vegetable garden, make sure that it's a pesticide for something you can put in the garden. You know, you don't want to put something in there that's going to kill a horse, you know. So, direction of use, for use, how to apply the pesticide, and how much to use. Don't buy too much. Guilty. If it's on sale, I'll probably buy it. Even on sale, it's not a bargain because of the leftovers. You don't want to store a bunch of pesticides in your, I don't know, your shed or wherever you keep them. Allowed sites where you can legally use safely the product. Indoors, outdoors, or both. Around vegetables, which ones? Residential or commercial. Kitchen or where food is prepared. Specific grass types. Also, if the plants are sensitive to the pesticide. And you want a pesticide that targets the pests you need to get rid of, insects or other pests for which the product is intended. Yep. We're missing that slide. Let's go here. I think
I'm right here.
right there.
All right.
You?
You're still up here.
I'm up here.
Don't go anywhere.
I'm not.
As always, we're going to tell you, and it's do as I say, not as I do kind of thing here. Always wear PPE equipment. Always protect yourself when you use any kind of chemical. Gloves or even the little white suits or goggles, masks, whatever you need to keep the chemical off yourself, even if it's biological. So, and watch the weather. You don't want to spray chemicals when it's about to rain and you just lost that money spraying whatever you're putting on your plants, whether it be biological or chemical or even predatory. You might lose them in the rain and you have to reapply. So, and of course, always measure properly.
Just because it says 4 ounces doesn't mean you want to use 8 ounces.
It doesn't work that much better.
And I'm guilty of doing that all the time. But I'm learning. I'm trying to go by the label.
I was talking to a friend of Jim's the other day.
Uh-oh.
And he said, I must say, what I've seen of Texas, it is the garden spot of the world. That was by Davy Crockett in 1836. He was writing a letter to his children. And so he thought Texas was beautiful. So using IPM, I think we can continue to make Texas as beautiful as it's always been.
And safe.
Oh, yeah. Well, how do we win with IPM? Well, we build our soil nutritionally, including soil testing. I mean, that's one thing they bore home to us in class, in master gardening class, is first thing you ask is, what did the soil sample say? Did you take a soil sample? We started to get t-shirts made up and wear every Friday, say, have you taken a soil sample? Always water. Water your plants properly. Don't overwater, don't underwater, but you also need to know what the pH of your water is. That could change the whole molecular process. Of course, Jim has said, plant according to your zone. Plant resistant varieties, especially the Texas Superstars. They're made for Texas, and a lot of them are of resistant varieties. Interplanting. I do this all the time. I planted basil in between all of my tomatoes last year. I had no bugs, hardly any bugs at all last year. And my basil did well too. The tomatoes didn't taste like basil, but they worked very well together. I'd been doing marigolds in the past and hadn't had much luck. I did basil, and I'm gonna do that again this year. Crop rotation. Never put the same crop in the same spot year to year or season to season. Make sure you're time planning. For those of us who are just now planning, we may be a little behind the schedule, but timing has all the importance in the world, because your plant, when it gets to this point where the insects come out, they're stronger and they're able to help you fight the insect control. As Jim said before, mulch and ground covers really helps, keeps the water. Sacrificial crops. This is what I need to probably grow a lot. Grow grow plants, well, the plants you like that you want to save, you grow a sacrificial plant next to it or in the same area to attract the bugs to that plant. So they take care of that plant versus eating the plant that you want to save. And then, as Jim said before, clean. Clean your area. After you've pruned, pick up all your branches, all your leaves. Some of those leaves may be diseased at that point, so you want to get them out of your garden, especially the roses. Of course, you can't eat roses. You can eat roses, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good joke.
Biologically controlling, same predatory insects, mites, parasitic insects, wasps, pathogens, microbial, and any kind of biological agents that you can inject or not inject, but have the virus go into the plant to kill the bugs. Or not a virus, biological agent. And then my praying mantis, my predatory bugs. And sprays, dust, and organics that you can use. Homemade preparations. I've been reading a lot about homemade preparations, like tobacco compost tea that they used to use a lot in the 40s. I know that compost tea is good too. A lot of people use cinnamon or peppermint in water and spray their plants. Of course, up there we've got black pepper, all kind of essential oils, dill, ginger, black pepper, cayenne, and citrus oils mixed with water can also treat some of the insects that you have in your garden. I can't give you specifics at this point, but diatomaceous earth is good to spread around the plants and on the plants. Pyrethins, everybody knows that's been around forever. It's kind of more on the, if I'm not mistaken, it's more on the harsher side of biologicals. Am I right?
I use it on cattle, so keep the flies off.
But it kills a lot of things, right? Yeah. Insecticidal soap, I use that. I even used it on grasshoppers last year and it worked. I don't know if they just got tired of it. Spinosad, BT. I didn't realize there's probably about 25 different BTs out there. They're everywhere, all for different types of insects in your garden. So when you buy BT, especially if you buy it from a big package store, be careful what you buy. Know the compound that you're buying. Bicarbonate of soda. Of course, neem oil. Use neem oil a lot. Horticulture oils, use it on your citrus. Baits. You can use baits to attract the bugs off your plants, insects off your plants. Same, use sulfur, and then dipel dust, which is basically a dust neem oil. It's made out of neem oil. Mechanical and manual controls. Jim's gone over a lot of these. You've got hand picking of pests, physical barriers, pheromone traps. I don't know if anybody ever done a pheromone trap. No, I haven't. Sticky traps. Now, I bought sticky traps for the first time this year. And in our giveaways today, there is some sticky traps in there. So I hope you try them and let us know how they work. Vacuum. You can buy a vacuum as low as $13 on Amazon. Water sprays with a bottle or a nozzle or water hose. Brushes. I've read a lot about people using makeup brushes. Jim wouldn't let me use his today, but
I gotta be beautiful.
But shaking the plant also, you can do that. I mean, it's got to be a pretty sturdy plant. I'm not going to go out there and shake my basil or my cilantro. It wouldn't shake very well. Pruning is very important. Always prune, especially the dead things. Anything that looks dead, anything's yellowing, it's probably a good idea to get rid of it. Copper strips. I'm reading more and more on this. People are putting copper tubing in their gardens, in their soil, going down 6 inches to a foot of copper tubing. Put copper strips around the bottom of your plants. And of course, painting your trees to keep especially your fruit trees, to keep plants from going up into the plant. They're not attracted to the paint. But the brush, going back to the brush, you can use that to apply neem oil on the back of your on the leaves of your plants. It's real effective in doing that, where the spray might not get everything. If you use a makeup brush and dip it in a solution of neem oil, you can use that to put on your plant leaves, and it's pretty effective. Pesticides. We're not really going to talk about pesticides today because we're not really promoting unless you really need them. There's a lot of them out there. We want to try to use the invasives first: biological, mechanical, chemical.
Pesticides are your last resort.
Right. There's a lot of them out there, and there's one for every bug, and there's one for all of them combined into one. If you go to the big package stores, they're for everything. Of course, always, as Jim said before, read the label prior to the application. You don't know, make sure it's for that type of insect that you're trying to get rid of. And one thing I will say before we go any further is IPM is not a method of getting rid of anything, totally getting rid of them, like they did the fire ants back in the 60s, where they tried to eradicate and send them all to Mars. And it backfired horribly on them. It killed people, it killed animals, it killed crops, it killed vegetation, it killed everything. So we want to try to keep from doing that. IPM is just to control it to a minimum, not to get rid of it. Then in closing, as I lose my voice, strategize your steps. When you plant plants, strategize what you're going to do and how you're going to do it if a problem comes up. Know beforehand. Have the biologicals on hand at your house, so you don't. Everybody in Leon County, we're about an hour from anything almost. So if you have to run into town just to get biologicals to put on your plants, you may not do it as quickly as you would if it was right down the street. Patrol your garden daily. Clean it daily. Look at your garden. Talk to it. Look underneath the leaves. That way you'll find out before things get out of hand. If you see something yellowing, try to figure it out. Identify the problem and determine how serious it is. If it's real serious, pull the plant up and start over with something else. I know you can't do that in large crops, but learn about the cycle of pests, how their life cycle is. And you can maybe see that on the back of leaves. And then you can take care of it. Of course, take the less harmful approach. And then enjoy the benefits, or reap the benefits.
Now, one thing you really have to look at is what kind of pests you've got. If you're looking at a insect on your plant and you can't identify it, you need to be able to identify it. If you can't figure out what it is, then call the extension office and they'll get a hold of somebody, me or Steve or Noveline, and we'll try and identify that pest and what you can use to get rid of it. But you got to know your enemy. If it's a beneficial insect, you don't want to kill it. If it's not, you need to get rid of it. That's it. So,
well, thank you very much for weathering the storm and coming out. We encourage you, if you're not a master gardener, we'd like to encourage you to think about becoming a master gardener. It's a great program. Just call the Leon County Extension Office at the phone number below, and happy growing.